My name is Nora Vance. I was 34 years old. And the first time my brother tried to make me accept $410,000 of debt. In my name was at his wedding reception. On June 14th, in the bellwether room, under chandeliers shaped like upside-down tulips, my mother stood beside table 14 and waved a folded notice like it was nothing more serious than a dinner menu. My father leaned close enough for me to smell the bourbon on his breath and said, "Pay it and stop embarrassing us." My brother Caleb was 10 feet away in a white dinner jacket, smiling at 140 guests like he had not spent months turning my name into a hiding place. Then he lifted his glass and said, "You're good with numbers, Nora, so be useful for once without making it about you." My accounting license was at stake. My credit was already frozen, and my name was sitting on papers I had never signed. In my clutch, under a lipstick I had not used all night, my phone held one prepared email with 6 attachments and no room for mercy. Before the cake was cut, a woman in a pewter jacket would stand near the service doors, and my brother's face would change in a way I still remember too clearly. What my family did not know was that I had stopped defending myself weeks earlier and started keeping records. Caleb's bride, Whitney, was still laughing when the first camera phone lifted. That was the part people remember, I think. Not my mother's handshaking. Not the way my father kept blocking the aisle with his body. Not Caleb's friends turning their chairs a little, hungry for a scene they could pretend they had not caused. They remember the phones. There were phones above centerpieces, phones beside champagne flutes, phones held low by people who wanted deniability. Someone at table 7 whispered my name. Someone else said, "Is that his sister?" The band had stopped between songs, so every little noise carried. Forks on china, a baby fussing near the back, the soft click of the photographer changing lenses. I sat with my napkin folded across my lap, my left thumb resting on the edge of my clutch, counting my breaths the way I counted receipts when clients dumped them across my desk in panic. Not because I was calm, because if I moved too fast, my family would call that the story. My mother, Marlene, had always been good at that. She could take the smallest tremor in my voice and turn it into evidence. "See," she would say, "this is why we can't talk to Nora." My father, Richard, preferred heavier words, dramatic, difficult, ungrateful, and Caleb, my little brother, had built an entire personality out of being forgiven before he asked. So I did not give them my shaking hands. I gave them my still ones. The wedding coordinator, a young woman named Elena Ortiz, passed behind my chair with a pitcher of ice water. She paused just long enough to set a glass by my right hand. She did not smile too brightly. She did not ask if I was okay in front of everyone. She just tapped the rim once with her finger and moved on. That tiny kindness almost broke me more than my father's cruelty. Across the room, the woman in the pewter jacket looked down at her phone. I had seen her once before in a fluorescent office with beige carpet and a printer that jammed twice in 15 minutes. She had asked me to organize the documents in chronological order. She had not asked me whether I was sure my brother would do something like this. She had simply read the first page, looked at the second, and said, "Ms. Vance, who else has seen these?" Now she was standing under a brass balcony while my brother adjusted the microphone for his toast. Caleb smiled at the room. My mother lifted the notice higher, like she thought paper could shame me if enough people saw it. And I waited, because numbers have a way of changing a room when people finally stop talking over them. Welcome back to By Then I Knew, where quiet people tell the part of the story everyone else tried to bury. If you have ever been treated like the family backup plan, the emergency wallet, the one who should understand because you always have before, this one is for you. Tell me where you are listening from, and stay with me, because the bill they handed me at that wedding was not where the story began. It was only where they finally got careless enough to say it out loud. I grew up in a split-level house in Worthington, Ohio, with beige carpet, storm windows, and a mother who labeled everything. There was a plastic bin for winter gloves, a drawer for batteries, a shoebox for appliance manuals, even after the appliances died, and on the top shelf of the pantry, behind the flour canister, there was a coffee can with masking tape on it that said, in my mother's neat blue handwriting, "Caleb's chances." I was 9 when I first asked what that meant. My mother was at the kitchen table balancing her checkbook. She still did it by hand then, with a calculator that printed a thin white tape that curled onto the floor. I loved the sound of it. Click, click, click. Then a short mechanical growl, then the answer. I liked answers, they seemed clean. She did not look up when she said, "Your brother needs a little extra help finding his thing." Caleb was 6 then. He had tried soccer and cried because the socks itched. He had tried piano and cried because the teacher corrected his fingers. He had tried karate and cried because another kid got a stripe first. Every time he quit, my mother called it finding his thing. Every time I finished something, she called it not needing much. I should have noticed the difference sooner. When I was 11, my class took a trip to Washington, D.C. I sold candy bars over Février and kept the money in a zippered pouch inside my dresser. One Thursday afternoon, I came home and the pouch was flat. My mother told me Caleb had been invited to a baseball camp and there was a registration deadline. "You're more mature than he is," she said, folding towels on the couch. "You understand waiting." I did understand waiting. I understood it so well that I became good at it. I waited for my mother to replace the money. She never did. I waited for my father to notice that I had stopped talking about the trip. He did not. I waited for Caleb to say thank you. But he only came home from camp with a new glove and a story about how the coach said he had potential. Potential was a word my parents used like currency. Caleb had potential, I had responsibility. In my family, being responsible was not a compliment. It was an assignment. By 13, I was the child who remembered when the electric bill was due. By 15, I was calling the cable company because my father hated automated menus. By 16, I was filling out my own financial aid forms at the dining room table, while Caleb played video games loud enough to make the light fixture buzz. My mother used to touch my hair and say, "You're my steady girl." It sounded loving if you did not look at what came after it. Steady girls did not complain when their birthday money went toward Caleb's car insurance. Steady girls understood when family vacations became baseball tournaments. Steady girls picked up extra shifts at the pharmacy because their brother needed one last chance at community college after failing the same math class twice. The first time I prepared a tax return, it was my own. I was 19, living in a dorm room that smelled like microwave popcorn and damp towels, working 2 campus jobs and 1 weekend bookkeeping job for a florist who paid me in cash and leftover roses. I sat on my bed with a borrowed laptop and a stack of W-2s, and for the first time in my life, I saw my work reduced to lines nobody could reinterpret. Gross wages, federal withholding, refund due. It was not emotional. It was not fair or unfair. It was just there. That comfort pulled me toward accounting. People think accounting is about math. It is not really. It is about memory. It is about noticing what happened, when it happened, who signed for it, where it went, and whether the story matches the record. Numbers do not make people honest. They just make dishonesty harder to decorate. I liked that. After college, I worked for a regional firm for 6 years, mostly small business accounts, landscapers, hair salons, food trucks, electricians. A woman who made custom dog collars out of her garage and cried every March because she hated mileage logs. I learned how panic sounds in a client's voice when they open an IRS letter. I learned how often people ignore notices until the envelope feels radioactive. I learned that most financial disasters begin with someone saying, "It's probably nothing." Eventually, I opened my own office above a dry cleaner on Hudson Street. It had 3 rooms, 2 windows, and a radiator that hissed like it resented me. Downstairs was a print shop owned by Tessa Min, a woman with short silver hair, square glasses, and the emotional range of a locked filing cabinet until she decided you were hers. Tessa became my client first, then my friend, then, without either of us naming it, something like family. She brought me coffee on quarterly tax days and left soup outside my office during flu season. She never asked intrusive questions. She noticed anyway. The first time Caleb came to my office, he looked around and laughed. "This is cute," he said. "Not nice, not impressive. Cute." He was 27 then, wearing a watch I knew he could not afford and a jacket with no socks in. February. He had started a company called Vance Urban Supply, which sounded like it should sell something expensive to people who used words like curated. What it actually did changed every time he explained it. Sometimes it was construction sourcing, sometimes event logistics, sometimes commercial lifestyle infrastructure, which meant nothing and somehow cost money. He needed help with payroll. That was how he put it. Just need you to clean up a few things, he said, dropping a laptop bag onto the chair across from my desk. A few things turned out to be unpaid payroll taxes, 3 contractors who should have been employees, a sales tax notice from the state, and 2 vendors threatening collections. I spent 2 weekends untangling it. Caleb brought me a bottle of wine with a clearance sticker still on the back and told our parents I had done some admin. When I asked him to pay my invoice, he looked offended. Nora, he said, come on. It's family. That was Caleb's favorite kind of math. If he owed you, it was family. If you owed him, it was principal. My father reinforced it every chance he got. Your brother is a builder. He would say at Sunday dinners. Even though Caleb had never built anything that survived more than a season, you're good with details. That's why God gave you 2 different strengths. My mother would smile into the mashed potatoes like this was wisdom. I let too many comments pass because correcting them felt exhausting. I would drive home with leftovers I did not want and promises to myself that I would stop helping next time. Then next time would arrive wearing Caleb's voice. A vendor is being unreasonable. A form is confusing. Can you look at this real quick? Dad says you understand this stuff. Mom's upset. Don't make this harder. By the time Caleb got engaged to Whitney Sorrell, I had stopped doing his books formally. I had also stopped answering calls after 9 at night, which my mother treated like I had moved to another country. Whitney was not a bad person, at least not in the way Caleb was. She was polished and pleasant, with glossy brown hair, a master's degree in nonprofit management, and parents who belonged to clubs with waiting lists. Her father, Graham Sorrell, owned medical office buildings. Her mother, Patricia, had the posture of someone who had never carried her own folding chair. When Caleb brought Whitney to Thanksgiving, my mother acted like he had personally married us into the Mayflower. She bought new napkins. She used place cards. She made me sit near the kitchen because you're easiest with serving. At one point, Whitney asked me what I did. I'm an accountant, I said. Small business taxes mostly. Caleb cut in before I could say more. Nora keeps people from going to jail over receipts. Everyone laughed. I smiled because I had been trained to make smallness comfortable for other people. Whitney said, that actually sounds useful. I remember Caleb's hand tightening around his fork. After dinner, while my mother packed leftovers into containers she labeled with Caleb's name, he found me in the hallway. Don't do that, he said. Do what? Make my fiancé think my family is weird about money. I looked at him for a long second. Your family is weird about money. He rolled his eyes. See, this is why people think you're bitter. I should have left then. I should have taken my coat from the closet and driven home without the cranberry sauce my mother insisted I take. But my father was laughing in the living room, and my mother was humming in the kitchen, and some old part of me still wanted one holiday where I did not become the problem by naming the problem. That old part of me cost me more than I knew. The wedding planning lasted 11 months and consumed my mother like a second religion. She had binders for linens, flowers, seating charts, hotel blocks, welcome bags, rehearsal dinner favors, brunch menus, and weather contingencies. She called me twice a week, not to ask how I was, but to update me on expenses she claimed were handled. Whitney's family is contributing. Of course, she said one evening in March. But your brother is insisting on doing his part. He's proud. What part? I asked. The groom's part. That's not a number, she sighed. Do you always have to make things sound like an audit? I was standing in my office with one shoe off because my heel had rubbed a blister into the back of my foot. Outside my window, the dry cleaner's neon sign blinked unevenly. I'm asking because Caleb's business still has open tax issues, I said. You don't know that. I do know that. I helped him with the notices. That was years ago. It was 18 months ago. You keep such sharp little records, she said, and her voice changed, soft, disappointed. Sometimes I wonder if you keep them because you want to be angry. I looked down at the adding machine tape on my desk. I had been reconciling quarterly estimates for a plumbing contractor, and the paper had curled around my coffee mug in a white loop of totals. I keep records because records matter. No, she said. People matter. Then she hung up. The sentence stayed with me because it sounded almost noble if you ignored the way she used it. In my mother's mouth, people matter meant Caleb mattered before bills, before facts, before anyone he harmed. 2 weeks later, the first notice arrived. It came to my office, not my apartment. That was the first detail that felt wrong. The envelope was from the IRS, addressed to Nora Vance with an H. My legal name is Nora, no H. Caleb used to tease me about that when we were kids. He would write, "No rah-rah for Nora" on my notebooks because he thought it was hilarious and I hated it. I almost set the notice aside for later because March is brutal in my line of work. Tax season turns days into one long blinking cursor. My desk was stacked with client files. My lunch was a protein bar I had opened and forgotten. The radiator was hissing. Tessa had already come upstairs once to tell me I looked tax season gray. But the envelope had my office address, so I opened it. The notice referenced an employer identification number I did not recognize, a business entity called Urban Frame Logistics LLC, and a responsible party issue tied to unpaid payroll deposits and business loan reporting. The language was dry. Government letters usually are. But dry does not mean harmless. I read it once, then again. Then I stood up and closed my office door. The responsible party listed on the notice was me. My social security number was partially masked, but the last 4 digits were mine. My office address was mine. My preparer tax identification number was referenced in a separate line that made my mouth go dry. I sat back down. For a few seconds, I heard nothing but the radiator and the faint thump of music from the print shop downstairs. Then I pulled a clean legal folder from my drawer. Blue, not yellow. I hated yellow folders. They felt too loud. I wrote Urban Frame on the tab and began. That was what my family never understood about me. Panic did come. It came hot and fast, behind my ribs, into my throat, down my arms. But my hands knew what to do before my heart caught up. I checked the Ohio Secretary of State database. Urban Frame Logistics LLC had been formed 7 months earlier. Registered agent. A commercial mailbox on Lane Avenue. Contact number, not mine. Email, admin@vancerbansupply.com. Caleb's domain. I stared at it until the letters blurred. Then I called him. He answered on the 4th ring with noise behind him, voices and glasses and some kind of bass-heavy music. "Nora," he said, cheerful and careless. "Make it quick. I'm at a tasting. I got an IRS notice for Urban Frame Logistics." There was a pause, short but real. Then he laughed. "Okay? It lists me as responsible party. That sounds like accounting noise, Caleb." "What? You probably filed something weird when you helped me before." "I did not form an LLC in my name. I didn't say you did. The email on the state filing uses your domain." Another pause. This one lasted long enough for me to hear a woman laughing near him. "You know what?" he said. "This is exactly why. I didn't want you involved in wedding stuff. You turn everything into a federal case." My fingers tightened around the phone. "Did you use my information? Don't be dramatic. Did you use my social security number?" He lowered his voice. "I'm not doing this while Whitney's mother is picking canapes. Answer me." "No," he said. "Too fast, too clean. And honestly, if some form has your name on it, maybe it's because you're always inserting yourself into my business." I almost laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because the body sometimes reaches for the wrong exit. "You asked me to clean up your payroll years ago. 18 months. There you go with the records again." Then he said the sentence that would come back at the wedding. "You're good with numbers. Nora, so be useful for once without making it about you." He hung up before I could answer. I did not call him back. Instead, I opened a spreadsheet. The first column was date. The second was document. The third was name used. The fourth was source. The fifth was notes. I did not know yet how large the file would become. I did not know about the venue payment, or the altered signature page, or the woman in the pewter jacket. I only knew that my brother had gone quiet, in exactly the place an innocent person would have become confused. I filed that away. The next morning, I froze my credit before coffee. Then I pulled my tax transcripts. I checked my IRS account. I searched state filings. I called the commercial mailbox location, pretending to verify a client address, and learned that the box was rented under Caleb's company card. I contacted the bank listed on a loan inquiry I found through a credit alert. The first representative would not tell me much. The second transferred me to fraud. The third, a woman named Denise, listened quietly while I explained. I can't disclose application details until we verify identity and follow procedure, she said. But I can tell you that if you believe you are a victim of identity theft, you need to file reports immediately. I understand. And Ms. Vance? Yes. Her voice changed slightly. The email domain on the inquiry may be familiar to you. She could not say more. She did not need to. By noon, I had a fraud alert, 2 case numbers, and a headache sitting behind my right eye. At 1:30, my mother called. I almost let it go to voicemail. Then I thought of Caleb at the tasting and answered. Mom, what did you say to your brother? I closed my eyes. What did he tell you? He said you accused him of stealing your identity during an important wedding appointment. Did he mention the IRS notice? He said there was a paperwork misunderstanding and you escalated it. A paperwork misunderstanding with my social security number. She made a small, impatient sound. Nora, I don't know all the technical pieces. I just know your brother was humiliated in front of Whitney's family. Good. Silence. I had never said something like that to her before. Not plainly. Not without softening it. Nora, she whispered, like I had slapped someone. Mom, if Caleb used my information, this could affect my license, my clients, my credit, my taxes. This is not a family argument. You don't know that he did. The company email is his domain. You don't know that he personally. Why are you already defending him from the facts? She breathed into the phone. I could picture her in the kitchen, one hand braced on the counter, eyes on the family calendar where Caleb's wedding date was probably circled in gold marker. Then she said, I know this doesn't look right. For 1 second, the whole room went still. My mother's voice was not defensive, it was tired. Scared, maybe, human. I sat down slowly. What do you know? She did not answer. Mom, I know your brother has been under pressure. That's not an answer. He wanted the wedding to be right. Whitney's family has expectations. Your father pushed him about, contributing. Things got complicated. My throat tightened. What things? Before she could answer, I heard a door open on her end. Caleb's voice came through faintly. Mom? Who are you talking to? My mother said, too brightly. No one, no one. That was the moment I stopped waiting for her to become brave. She came back on the line, and her voice had changed again. Whatever this is, we can discuss it after the wedding. I need you not to upset him right now. Did you know my name was on anything? Nora, please. Did you know? He said some papers might have been filed in a way that looked confusing. I wrote that down. Some papers might have been filed in a way that looked confusing. Mom, I said, listen to yourself. Don't talk down to me. Then don't ask me to pretend fraud is confusion. She started crying, not loud. Just enough for me to hear it and feel the old hook catch under my ribs. You have no idea what this family has been through trying to make one nice thing happen, she said. One nice thing? I looked at the IRS notice on my desk, at my name spelled wrong over my real numbers, and I understood with a clarity that felt almost cold. The wedding was not separate from the debt. It was the reason everyone wanted me quiet. That afternoon, Tessa came upstairs carrying a paper bag from the Vietnamese bakery on the corner. You not come down for lunch, she said. I'm busy. You are always busy. Today you look like a copier jam with bones. I would have laughed if I had any air. She set the bag on my desk and saw the folder. Tessa did not ask to read it. She just looked at the tab. Business problem or family problem? I looked at her. She nodded once. Bad family problem, that was a Tessa. Efficient even with grief. I told her enough. Not everything. Just enough to explain why I needed copies, scans, and maybe a notary. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she took off her glasses and polished them with the hem of her cardigan. Tell me which pages need tabs, she said. No speech, no gasp. No, but he's your brother. No request for me to prove I was hurt enough. She locked her shop for 20 minutes and helped me print the first packet. She used red tabs for government notices, blue tabs for state filings, green tabs for banking, and white tabs for correspondence. She had a labeling machine that clicked more softly than my old calculator, and the sound steadied me. At 6, she placed a mug of tea beside my keyboard. You will eat before you do another page, she said. I'm not hungry. I did not ask for a character statement from your stomach. So I ate. That small practical act mattered more than any promise my mother had made in 34 years. Over the next week, the file grew. The signature page came first. It arrived from a lender after I submitted a formal identity theft claim and verification documents. Most of it was redacted, but enough remained. My name, my office address, my social security number. A signature that looked like mine if you had not seen me sign anything recently. But I had. I signed tax returns, engagement letters, forms, and client authorizations every day. My current signature is fast, compressed, tilted slightly upward at the end. The signature on the loan paperwork was wider, rounder, slower. It looked like my signature from 7 years earlier. And then I remembered. After my grandmother died, my father had asked me to sign a family loan document connected to repairs on the old house before it was sold. I had signed it at my parents' dining room table while Caleb ate cereal from a mixing bowl and complained about the Wi-Fi. My father had kept the copy. I found a scan of that old document in an email thread. The forged signature matched it almost exactly. Not traced perfectly. Copied by someone who thought close was enough. That detail stayed with me. The second piece was the registered phone number. It belonged to an old office line Caleb had used when Vance Urban Supply was still pretending to need a receptionist. I found it on a cached version of his website. The third piece was the money. At first, the loan accounts were only partial shadows, inquiries, notices, references, masked numbers. But patterns do not need full sunlight to exist. One bank confirmed an account had been opened using my identifying information. Another confirmed an application listed my office address. A third sent me instructions for a fraud affidavit. And in the attached reference sheet, someone forgot to fully redact the last 4 digits of a disbursement account. I matched those digits to a vendor payment listed on a wedding planning spreadsheet my mother had accidentally forwarded to me 2 months earlier. She had sent it because she wanted me to check whether the gratuity line looked tax-deductible somehow. It was not. I had ignored the spreadsheet then, except to tell her no. Now I opened it again. Bellwether Room deposit, $78,000. Date, 2 days after the loan disbursement. Same last 4 digits. I sat there for a long time, the cursor blinking in the cell. Outside my office, someone downstairs laughed at something in Tessa's shop. A normal sound. A Tuesday sound. The world had the nerve to continue, while my brother's wedding venue sat in my spreadsheet beside a loan opened in my name. I printed the page. Then I printed the bank reference. Then I highlighted the date. Not because highlighting makes truth truer, because people who do not want to see need fewer places to look. The fourth piece came from Aunt Lila. She was my father's older sister, a narrow woman with soft sweaters, sharp eyes, and the habit of carrying peppermints in her purse. She had never openly challenged my parents, but she had seen more than she said. She called me on a Sunday morning while I was sitting on my apartment floor surrounded by paper. "I hear there's trouble," she said. "That depends on who told you. Your mother said you're trying to ruin the wedding." I rubbed my forehead. Of course she did. She also said Caleb made a mistake. What kind of mistake? She didn't specify. Then she knows enough not to specify. Aunt Lila was quiet. I thought she might defend them. Instead, she sighed. "When your father was little," she said, "he used to break things and hide them behind the furnace. Your grandmother always found them. He never learned that hiding a broken thing made it less broken." It was the closest she had ever come to calling him a coward. Then she said, "I have a voicemail you may want." My hand stopped over the papers. "What voicemail?" "Richard left it last month. He thought he was calling your mother. He was angry. Said Caleb always needs someone to carry him, and this time it had better not fall apart before the wedding." I stared at the blue folder. "Can you send it to me?" "Yes." "Will you tell them you sent it?" "No." I closed my eyes. "But Nora, yes?" I will not lie if someone asks me directly. That was the kind of courage Aunt Lila had. Narrow, late, but real enough to stand on if you placed your foot carefully. She sent the voicemail. My father's voice came through tinny and irritated. "Marlene, he says Nora's name might show up on one of the things, but she's handled this kind of paperwork before. Just keep her calm until after the wedding. Caleb always needs someone to carry him, and I am not letting this fall apart now." I listened to it twice. Then I added it to the timeline. By then, I had stopped calling my family for explanations. I communicated by text, because texts can be printed, screenshotted, and dated. My mother kept sending messages that sounded gentle until you read them twice. Honey, your brother is under so much stress. Can we please have one day without money talk? Your father thinks it would be best if you sit with Aunt Lila, away from the head table. I know you're upset, but Whitney has done nothing wrong. Please don't bring any papers to the wedding. That last one told me Caleb had told her more than he admitted. I responded once. I will attend as a guest. I will not discuss false debt privately. Any further communication about accounts in my name should be in writing. She did not answer for 6 hours. Then she sent, "You sound like a stranger." I typed 3 different replies and deleted all of them. Finally, I wrote, "No, I sound documented." She left that on read. The next day, I made an appointment with the IRS Taxpayer Assistance Center, and then, through the identity theft process and a referral I will not pretend was, I spoke to Special Agent Dana Kellerman from IRS Criminal Investigation. That sounds dramatic when I say it now. It did not feel dramatic then. It felt like beige chairs, a security guard with tired eyes, fluorescent light, and me trying not to cry whilst explaining that my brother had possibly used my information to create business obligations that touched tax filings. Agent Kellerman was in her 40s, maybe early 50s, with dark blonde hair cut just below her jaw and a jacket the color of a storm cloud. Pewter, I thought later. She had the calm of someone who did not need to perform authority because she had it. She reviewed the packet 1 page at a time. She asked precise questions. When did you first receive notice? Who had access to your prior signature? Have you ever authorized your brother to use your PTIN? Did you benefit from any disbursement? Do you have reason to believe wedding expenses were paid from these funds? At that question, I slid the highlighted pages across the table. She looked at the bellwether room deposit, then at the bank reference, then at the wedding spreadsheet my mother had forwarded. She did not raise her eyebrows. She did not say, "Oh my God." She simply wrote something in a narrow notebook. "Mrs. Vance," she said, "has your family asked you to accept responsibility for this debt?" Yes, in writing, some texts. Verbally, yes, any witnesses? My aunt? Possibly. And there will be 140 guests at the wedding if they decide to do it there. Agent Kellerman looked up. "You believe they will confront you publicly." "I believe they think public pressure will make me quiet." She sat back slightly. "Are you planning to confront him at the wedding?" "No, that was true. I'm planning to attend. If they leave me alone, I will leave after dinner. If they publicly accuse me of owing debt that was created through identity theft, I will send you the final packet with any new evidence attached." She studied me for a second. "You understand this process does not become instant because of a wedding." "I do. And you understand our actions are not for family leverage." "Yes, good." She tapped the packet once. "Keep your communications clean. Do not threaten him. Do not tell him what we discussed. Do not alter anything. If new statements are made, preserve them. I can do that." "I can see that," she said. It was the first time in weeks someone had looked at my records and seen discipline instead of disloyalty. Before I left, she gave me a card. Not her personal number, not movie-style secrecy. Just a card, a case reference, and instructions. Still, when I stepped into the parking lot, my knees felt weak. I sat in my car for 12 minutes before I could drive. That night, I prepared the email. Subject line: Vance Urban Frame Update, Wedding Event Statements Pending. Attachments: Identity Theft Affidavit, Fraud Timeline, Lender Packet, State Filing Record, Bank Vendor Match, Family Communications. I did not send it. I saved it as a draft. Then I placed my phone on the kitchen counter and made myself wash a bowl, a spoon, and 1 coffee mug because life still requires small maintenance, even when your brother is trying to bury you financially. The morning of the wedding, my mother called at 8:17. I know the exact time because I wrote it down. "Nora," she said, "I need you to come early." "Why?" "Because I need help." "With what?" "Just things." "What things?" She exhaled. "Don't start." I was standing in my bedroom wearing a robe. My dress hanging from the closet door, navy blue, plain, sleeveless, the kind of dress that does not beg to be noticed or apologize for existing. "I'm a guest," I said. "You're his sister." That has not helped me lately. She went quiet, then softer. "I know this has been hard. My hand tightened around the phone. There it was again, the almost moment, the door opening half an inch. "Mom, did Caleb use my information?" She did not speak. "Please," I said. I hated the word as soon as it left me. In the background, I heard voices. My father. Caleb, maybe. Someone moving quickly. My mother whispered, "After today, we can sit down." "No. Today is the day everyone keeps using as an excuse. Answer me now." "I can't do this right now." "You can, you won't." "Nora, did he use my name?" A long silence. Then my father's voice boomed faintly. "Marlene, we need the cufflinks." When she came back, her voice had hardened. "You will not ruin your brother's wedding." I looked at myself in the mirror. No makeup yet. Hair clipped back, face pale. A woman still waiting for her mother to choose her and watching the choice happen in real time. "I'm not the one who brought fraud to the wedding," I said. "Do you hear yourself?" "Yes," I said. Finally, I hung up, then I got dressed. Before I left, I opened the narrow bottom drawer of my desk. Inside was my old printing calculator, the one I had bought used when I started the office. I had newer tools now, software and dashboards and bank feeds, but I kept that calculator because the sound reminded me of being 19 and realizing records could be cleaner than family stories. A strip of adding machine tape still curled from it. I tore it off without thinking and folded it into my clutch. I do not know why. It was not evidence. It was not useful. Maybe I wanted to carry one thing that belonged only to me, one small white trail of numbers no one had altered. The bellwether room used to be a bank. That was one of Caleb's favorite details. He had mentioned it at Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, and in at least 3 family group texts. Old vault doors, marble floors, brass fixtures. A balcony where the photographer could shoot down during the first dance. He loved that building because it made money look historical instead of borrowed. When I arrived, valet attendants were moving cars through a narrow drive lined with white hydrangeas. A string quartet played near the entrance. The programs were printed on thick cream paper with gold edges. Inside, the air smelled like lilies, floor polish, and expensive candles. My mother saw me before I saw her. She crossed the lobby fast, pearls bouncing against her collarbone. "Nora," she said, smiling for the guests near us. "There you are." She hugged me with one arm and whispered into my hair, "Please behave." I stepped back. "You look nice, Mom." The compliment confused her. She had expected resistance. I gave her manners instead. My father stood behind her in a black tuxedo, his face already flushed. He looked me up and down. "No papers," he said. "Hello to you too. This is not the day." "I agree." He narrowed his eyes, unsure whether we were agreeing about the same thing. Caleb appeared at the end of the hallway with 2 groomsmen. He looked handsome in the way men look handsome when no consequence has ever fully reached them. His hair was perfect. His jacket was white. His smile was wide enough for guests, tight enough for me. "Sis," he said. I had always hated when he called me that in public. It sounded affectionate and ownership-heavy at the same time. "Caleb." He kissed my cheek without touching me anywhere else. "Let's keep everything smooth today," he murmured. "Then don't lie about me." His smile did not move, but his eyes changed. "You really want to do this here?" "No." "Good." He stepped back and clapped his hands at the groomsmen. "Let's go get me married." The ceremony was beautiful. That is one of the uncomfortable truths. Awful people can stand under flowers. Fraud can wear cufflinks. Your brother can look tender while promising honesty to a woman whose father unknowingly helped pay for the room where the lie is happening. Whitney walked down the aisle with her father, and she looked genuinely happy. Her dress had sleeves of sheer lace and tiny buttons down the back. When Caleb saw her, he put his hand over his mouth like a man overcome. I watched him, not because I was immune to beauty, because I knew he could perform sincerity so well that even sincerity itself seemed to trust him. During the vows, my mother cried. My father patted Caleb's shoulder during the recessional like he had personally raised a prince. Aunt Lila sat beside me and placed 1 peppermint in my palm without looking at me. After the ceremony, while guests moved into cocktail hour, she leaned close. "I'm here," she said. "I know," she said. "I mean, if asked." My eyes burned. "Thank you." She nodded once and adjusted her purse on her lap. That was all. With Aunt Lila, it was always all. The reception began at 6:10. The bellwether room glowed under warm lights. Tall arrangements of white roses and greenery sat in the center of each table. The menus had wax seals. The bar served signature cocktails named after Caleb and Whitney's dog, which Caleb had complained about for months and now called our little guy. Whenever Whitney's parents were listening, my seat was at table 14. Not with my parents at table 2. Not with Aunt Lila at table 5. Not near the head table. Table 14 was near a column and half behind a speaker with 2 of Caleb's college friends, an elderly cousin from my mother's side, a coworker of Whitney's who looked apologetic about the seating, and an empty chair where someone's +1 had not arrived. I found my place card tucked behind the bread plate. Nora Vance, no H, a strange relief. My mother came by before salads. "I hope you're comfortable," she said. "I'm fine. You understand why we seated you here?" "No." She blinked. I took a sip of water. Her smile stayed in place. "We just thought you might prefer less attention." "Did you?" Nora, there it was. My name is Warning. Behind her, I noticed Elena, the catering captain, checking table numbers against a clipboard. She wore black, with her hair in a smooth low bun and a radio clipped at her waist. Earlier, when a server dropped a tray of champagne near the bar, Elena had redirected 3 palpal, replaced the drinks, and soothed the bride's cousin without raising her voice. Competence recognizes competence. My mother followed my glance and lowered her voice. "I need you to listen carefully." "Okay." She opened her pearl clutch. Inside, folded into thirds, was a copy of the notice. My notice, highlighted. I looked at it, then at her. "You brought that here," her nostrils flared. "Your father thought seeing the actual amount might make this feel real to you. It has felt real to me since it arrived. We need a plan." "We?" She removed the paper and held it low beside the table at first. "Your brother cannot deal with this right now. He created it. You don't know that. I know enough, then help enough." The elderly cousin at my table looked down at her salad. Caleb's college friend pretended to read the wine label while angling his phone slightly toward us. I noticed, so did Elena. She paused near the service station. My mother's voice got softer, which somehow made it worse. "Just agree tonight. We'll make it look normal later." I almost asked her what normal meant to her. I almost asked whether normal was a forged signature and a wedding spreadsheet. I almost asked if she remembered my DC trip money, the coffee can, the way she had trained me to disappear in installments. Instead, I said, "Put the paper away." My father arrived before she could answer. He had a glass of bourbon in his hand and the set jaw of a man who had already decided volume was leadership. "What's going on?" "Richard," my mother said. "Not now." He looked at the notice in her hand, then at me. "So you've seen the number. I saw it before your wife brought it to my dinner table." He leaned close. "You need to pay it and stop embarrassing us." The sentence did not shock me. That was what made it land so deep. It fit too well in the room my childhood had built. I set my fork down. "This is not my debt. It has your name on it. Because Caleb put it there." My mother hissed, "Lower your voice." I looked around. 3 phones now, maybe 4. A woman at table 13 had turned fully in her chair. My voice is lower than Dad's. My father's face darkened. "This family has carried you too." I blinked. "There are lies so large they almost become weather. You stand inside them and feel foolish for being wet." "How?" I asked. He did not expect the question. "What? How has this family carried me?" "Nora, don't be childish. No. Tell me. Was it when I paid Kate's vendor, when I fixed his payroll, when my school trip money went into his camp, when I filed your insurance appeal, when I handled Mom's hospital billing? Which part was carrying me?" His jaw worked. My mother's eyes filled with tears, but not the kind that meant she was sorry. The kind that meant I had stopped playing my assigned role and she needed the room to punish me for it. "You keep score," she whispered. "Yes," I said. "That is usually what people call accounting." Caleb appeared then as if summoned by the first sign of resistance. He had one hand in his pocket and the other wrapped around a champagne flute. His boutonniere was slightly crooked. He looked from my mother's face to my father's, then to the paper. His expression barely shifted. That was when I knew he had expected this. "Everything okay over here?" he asked. "No," I said. He smiled for the surrounding tables. Classic Nora. Nobody laughed loudly, but a few people released nervous air that wanted to be laughter. He leaned down, close enough that his cologne filled my throat. "I told you not to make today about you. You made accounts about me." His smile thinned. You don't understand what you're looking at. That sentence mattered. He should have said, I don't know what you're talking about. He should have said, that isn't mine. He should have said, let's call someone. Instead, he said I did not understand what I was looking at. I filed that away too. Elena stepped in then, holding a water pitcher. Fresh water? She asked, calm as a church bell. No one had asked for water. She filled my glass. As she leaned slightly toward me, she said under her breath, service hallway door stays unlocked. Then she moved on. My mother did not notice. Caleb did. His eyes followed Elena for half a second. What was that? He asked. Water. He looked back at me. You always do this, he said. You collect little allies. Make people feel sorry for you. I thought of Tessa labeling tabs, Aunt Lila sending the voicemail, Agent Kellerman turning pages under fluorescent lights, Elena placing water by my hand because she could see a woman being cornered. No, I said. People notice things. Before he could answer, the DJ announced speeches. A wave of relief moved through my parents. Structure had returned. The program would save them. The room would look forward again. Caleb straightened his jacket. We'll finish this after, he said. No, I said softly. You will finish it before you know you're finishing it. He frowned, but the DJ called his name. The room applauded, and my brother, who had always trusted applause more than truth, walked toward the microphone. The first speeches were normal. Whitney's maid of honor cried through a story about college roommates and bad boxed wine. Caleb's best man made jokes about missed flights, fantasy football, and Caleb being the most determined guy I know, which made Aunt Lila press her lips together. Whitney's father spoke next. Graham Sorrell had the controlled warmth of a man used to boardrooms and donor dinners. He welcomed Caleb into the family. He mentioned trust twice. I watched Caleb nod solemnly both times. Then Caleb took the microphone. The photographer moved to the balcony. The videographer adjusted his tripod. Guests lifted glasses. Caleb looked at Whitney first. My beautiful wife, he said. The room made the soft sound rooms make when they are ready to approve of love. He talked about meeting Whitney at a charity gala. He talked about her patience, her intelligence, her belief in him. He thanked her parents for their generosity. He thanked my parents for teaching me that family shows up. I felt my mother look at me. I did not look back. Caleb's voice warmed. He was good at this part. He knew how to sound spontaneous while choosing every word for effect. And I want to say something about family, he continued. Because weddings bring out emotion, right? They bring out old stuff. They bring out money stress and planning stress, and all the things people don't always handle gracefully. A few polite chuckles. My hand moved to my clutch. Aunt Lila's peppermint crinkled in her purse. Caleb looked toward table 14. There it was, the turn. I have a sister, Nora, he said, smiling like he loved me. Most of you haven't met her because she likes to stay behind the scenes. She's the numbers person in the family. More chuckles. My father stared straight ahead. My mother's face had gone pale under her makeup. Caleb lifted his glass toward me. She has helped with business things over the years. Sometimes willingly, sometimes while reminding us all that she is the only adult in the room. The laughter got louder because people thought they understood the joke. I watched Whitney's smile falter slightly. Caleb continued, but family means you don't get to step in when things are useful and step out when they're sev responsibility. You don't get to act surprised when the bill comes due. The room changed, not fully, not yet, but enough. A silence moved under the laughter like a draft under a door. He should have stopped there. If he had stopped there, maybe it would still have been ugly. Maybe he could have claimed it was a vague family joke. Maybe the agents would still have come later, in a quieter way, after the reception, after the photographs, after Whitney's dress was boxed and the flowers wilted. But Caleb had been protected his entire life by rooms that laughed with him, so he kept going. Nora knows what those funds were for, he said. She knows this weddings mattered to both families, and I hope tonight, with everyone here, she remembers that family obligations don't disappear just because paperwork gets complicated. There are moments when a room understands before it knows why. Whitney turned her head slowly toward Caleb. Graham Sorrell stopped smiling. My mother closed her eyes. At table 14, the college friend lowered his phone as if the recording had become too real for him. then raised it again because curiosity won. Caleb, still smiling, looked directly at me. "She owes family," he said. I did not stand. I did not answer. I raised my glass because everyone else was holding one. Then I set it down. I opened my clutch, took out my phone, and unlocked it under the table. My thumb did not shake until I saw the draft. Vance Urban Frame Update. Wedding event statements pending. For 1 second, I saw every page that had brought me there. The notice with my name spelled wrong. The old signature copied like a costume. My mother's text asking me not to bring papers. My father's voicemail saying Caleb needed someone to carry him. The bellwether deposit, $78,000. 2 days after the disbursement, Agent Kellerman's card, Tessa's tabs, Elena's water glass, Aunt Lila's peppermint in my palm. I added one line to the body of the email. Public statement made by Caleb Vance at 7:42 p.m., acknowledging funds and family obligation. Multiple witnesses, recording. Then I pressed send. The sound was tiny, a soft whoosh, not dramatic, not loud enough for anyone else to hear. My brother was still at the microphone, bathing in the last of his own confidence. "Now," Caleb said, turning back to Whitney, "let's cut some cake before my wife realizes she could have done better." That got a laugh. A thin one. The DJ looked unsure. Elena appeared near the service doors and touched her earpiece. The woman in the pewter jacket stepped away from the wall. She was not alone. A man in a dark suit entered behind her, and another waited near the side entrance. They did not rush. They did not shout. They moved with the calm of people who know the room will make enough noise without their help. Agent Kellerman walked across the marble floor. The first guests noticed her because she crossed through the photographer's shot. Then Graham Sorrell noticed her. Then Caleb did. His smile held for 1 extra second, like a sign still lit after the power fails. Agent Kellerman stopped a few feet from the microphone. "Mr. Vance," she said, not loudly, but the microphone caught enough of it. "Before you answer another question in this room, you need to step away from the microphone." The room went silent. Not quiet. Silent. Caleb blinked. "I'm sorry, who are you?" She opened a small credential case. Special Agent Dana Kellerman, IRS Criminal Investigation. The word IRS moved through the room faster than flame. Someone gasped. Whitney whispered, "Caleb?" He laughed once. It was a terrible sound. Too high, too brief. "Okay, this is obviously a misunderstanding." Agent Kellerman did not look at the guests. She did not perform for the cameras. She kept her eyes on Caleb. "Step away from the microphone, please." My father stood. "This is a private event." Agent Kellerman turned her head slightly. "Sir, sit down." 3 words, no raised voice. My father sat. That might have been the first time in my life I saw a person outside our family tell him no and watch him obey. Caleb lifted both hands as if calming everyone. "Whitney, baby, this is nothing. Nora's been confused about some paperwork." My name in his mouth made the room turn toward me. I stood then. Slowly, not to speak, just to place 1 sheet of paper on table 14. It was the clean 1-page timeline I had printed that morning. Not the full packet, not every detail, just enough. Formation date, loan application date, disbursement date, bellwether room deposit date, wedding contract number used, Nora Vance, authorizing email domain, vancerbansupply.com, vendor payment, bellwether room, $78,000. Caleb saw it from the microphone. I know he did because his eyes went there before they came to me. That pause did more than any speech I could have given. Graham Sorrell walked toward the table and picked up the sheet. My mother whispered, "Nora, don't." I looked at her. "Don't what?" She had no answer. Agent Kellerman held a folder of her own. "Mr. Vance, why did a loan account opened using Ms. Vance's social security number? Send $78,000 to this venue under your wedding contract number." Whitney made a small sound and gripped the edge of the head table. Caleb's face drained so quickly I thought he might fall. "I don't know anything about that." Agent Kellerman looked toward the timeline. "Then why did you just state publicly that Miss Vance knew what those funds were for?" The question entered the room and stayed there. Caleb opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Whitney's father, looked at my father, looked at my mother, finally looked at me. There was the little boy who had taken my trip money and come home with a glove. The teenager who had wrecked my father's car and let everyone blame weather. The man who had called stolen identity paperwork Complicated because the wedding flowers were already ordered. He was not sorry. He was cornered. Those are different things. Whitney stood too fast. Her chair tipped backward and hit the floor. Patricia Sorrell reached for her daughter, but Whitney had gone white around the lips. "Caleb," she said, "tell me that's not true." "Baby," he said, stepping away from the microphone at last. "This is family stuff. Nora has always been. Tell me it's not true." He looked at the agents, no answer. Whitney swayed. Patricia caught her under one arm, and one of the bridesmaids grabbed the other. For a second, Whitney's knees buckled completely. People later said she fainted. Maybe she did. Maybe her body simply refused to stand inside the sentence her husband would not finish. Graham folded the timeline once, very carefully. Then he turned to Caleb. "You used debt in your sister's name to pay this venue?" Caleb's voice cracked. "It was temporary. The room heard that. The agents heard that. I heard my mother inhale like the word had cut her. Temporary, not false. Temporary." Agent Kellerman said, "Mr. Vance, we need you to come with us to the venue office. I'm not leaving my wedding." The second agent stepped forward. "This is not optional." My father stood again, slower this time. "Can't this wait?" Agent Kellerman looked at him. "Mr. Vance, you are welcome to provide your contact information as a witness, if you have relevant knowledge." Witness. My father sat back down as if his knees had aged 10 years. Caleb looked at me with pure hatred then. Not fear, not pleading, hatred. "You did this," he said. I did answer that. "No," I said. "I kept records. It was the only thing I said during the reveal, and it was enough." Elena opened the service hallway door. The agents guided Caleb toward it, not with handcuffs, not in some dramatic movie scene, but with firm bodies and quiet instructions. That made it worse for him, I think. There was no spectacle big enough for him to hide inside. Just steps across marble while guests stared. Phones followed him. The photographer lowered his camera. The DJ took off his headphones. The cake stood untouched near the far wall. 5 tiers of white frosting and sugar flowers under a pin spot of light. Whitney's mother helped her daughter toward the exit. Graham followed, still holding the folded timeline. At the doors, he stopped and looked back at me. He did not know me, not really. But he gave one short nod, not gratitude, not warmth, acknowledgement. In that room, acknowledgement felt like a blanket. My mother reached for my wrist. I moved before she touched me. "Nora," she said, "what have you done?" I looked at her hand hanging between us. What I should have done when the first notice came. Her face crumpled. "You should have warned us." I stared at her. That was the sentence that finished something in me. Not Caleb's toast, not my father's demand, not even the bill in her hand. "You should have warned us." As if the danger was not what Caleb had done to me, but what might happen to them when people found out. "I did warn you," I said. "I asked you to tell the truth." My father came to her side, his voice low and furious. We were trying to keep the family together. Aunt Lila stood from table 5. She walked slowly, one hand on her purse, and stopped beside my mother. "Marlene," she said, "you knew enough." My mother flinched. Aunt Lila did not say more. She did not need to. Her words were small, but they landed because everyone else had been drowning the room in excuses. My father pointed at her. "Stay out of this." "No," Aunt Lila said. Just that. No, it was not loud. It was not dramatic. But my father looked more startled by that small refusal than he had by the agents. My mother began to cry in earnest. "Nora, please. He's your brother." I looked toward the service hallway where Caleb had disappeared. Then at the cake. Then at the folded notice still on the table, highlighted in yellow. My name sitting above debt I had not made. "He used that word before he used my name," I said. She shook her head like she did not understand. Maybe she didn't. Maybe understanding would have required her to look backward and count too many things. My phone buzzed. A message from Tessa. "You alive?" I almost laughed. I typed back, technically. 3 dots appeared. Then door downstairs unlocked when you get home. Dumplings in fridge. No talking required. I put the phone away before I cried. The reception dissolved in pieces. First, Whitney's family left. Not all at once. Not in a dramatic march, but in clusters. Aunts collecting purses. Cousins whispering. One groomsman trying to reach Caleb by phone, even though everyone knew where he had gone. The videographer packed up without asking anyone. The band began quietly loading equipment. The venue manager spoke with Elena near the bar. I saw Elena point toward the office hallway, then toward me, then shake her head once when my father tried to interrupt. Caleb's friends disappeared fastest. That did not surprise me. Men like Caleb collect people who enjoy the glow, but not the fire. My mother sat at table 14 with the notice in front of her. It no longer looked like a weapon. It looked like evidence she wished she had not touched. My father paced near the column, making calls nobody answered. At one point, he came back to me. "You need to fix this." I looked up. There it was, the family reflex, even now. Especially now. Fix what? Your brother is in a room with federal agents on his wedding night. Yes, you know what I mean. I do. Then help him. No, he stared at me. You don't mean that. I do. His face twisted with disbelief, as if I had announced I could breathe underwater. Nora, this could ruin him. I picked up my clutch. Dad. He put $410,000 of debt in my name. He panicked. He forged my signature. You don't know the whole story. I know the signature. I know the account. I know the vendor payment. I know the email domain. I know the voicemail you left Mom. His mouth opened slight. There it was. Not guilt yet. Recognition. You recorded me? You recorded yourself. He looked toward Aunt Lila. She did not look away. For once, there was no useful daughter stepping into the silence to make it easier. My mother whispered, "Richard?" He turned on her. "You told me you deleted that." I almost sat down from the force of it. Aunt Lila's face changed. My mother covered her mouth. The room was mostly empty by then, but not empty enough. 2 servers heard, Elena heard, Aunt Lila heard, I heard. My father realized what he had said a second too late. He reached for me with his voice, not his hands. "Nora, wait." I did not. I walked toward the lobby. The marble floor was cold through the thin soles of my shoes. Outside, the night air smelled like rain and cut flowers from the arrangement's guests had abandoned. The valet stand was half deserted. Someone had left a white satin ribbon on the sidewalk, and it moved a little in the breeze. I stood under the awning and took my first full breath in hours. Aunt Lila came out a minute later. She had my wrap over her arm. I had forgotten it on the chair. "You'll freeze," she said. "It's June. You always say that when you're cold." She placed it around my shoulders. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "I should have said more years ago." I looked at her. She did not cry. Aunt Lila was not a crying woman. Her regret sat straighter than that. "Yes," I said. She nodded. "I know." That was the closest thing to an apology I had ever received from anyone in my family. And because she did not ask me to make her feel better, I could accept it. My rideshare arrived at 9:06. Before I got in, my mother came through the doors. Her makeup had streaked under one eye. The pearls were gone from her neck. Maybe she had taken them off. Maybe the clasp had broken. She looked smaller, but I had learned not to mistake small for safe. "Nora," she called. I paused with my hand on the car door. "We need to talk privately." "No, please, not like this. This is the first honest version of like this we've had." She flinched. "I am your mother. I know." "Then don't leave me standing here." I thought of being 11, standing by my dresser with an empty pouch. 13, pretending not to want school photos because Caleb needed cleats. 27, weekends cleaning his payroll while he called my office cute. 34, watching her wave a federal notice at my dinner table because she thought shame was stronger than fact. "You left me standing a long time ago," I said. Then I got in the car. I did not look back until we turned the corner. She was still under the awning, one hand at her throat, with the bellwether room glowing behind her like a building from someone else's life. The legal process did not wrap itself up that night. Stories like this can make consequences look instant, but paperwork has its own weather. There were affidavits, interviews, formal disputes, lender investigations, credit bureau letters, insurance notices, and more certified mail than I ever wanted to see again. Caleb was not dragged into prison in his wedding shoes. He was questioned. His devices were requested through proper channels. Records were subpoenaed. Accounts were traced. People gave statements. But something did happen that night that could not be undone. The story changed owners. For weeks, my family had tried to make me the unstable sister, the bitter accountant, the woman causing stress before a wedding. After Caleb's toast, after Agent Kellerman's question, after his word temporary, that version of the story could not stand upright. Too many people had seen it lean. The next morning, I woke up to 23 unread messages. I did not open most of them. My mother had sent 11. Please call me. Your father is beside himself. Caleb needs a lawyer. Whitney's family won't speak to us. I never meant for you to be hurt. You have to understand how scared I was. We are still family. The last one came at 4:32 in the morning. A family does not do what you did in front of strangers. I stared at that one for a long time. Then I took a screenshot and added it to the folder. Not because I planned to use it, because the habit of documenting had saved me once, and I was not ready to stop trusting it. My father sent only one text: call me before this goes further. It had already gone further. That was the point. Caleb called 17 times from 3 different numbers. He left 2 voicemails. In the first, he was furious. You have no idea what you've done. You think you're so smart with your little folders, but you just blew up my life. In the second, his voice was soft. Nora, come on, I know things got messed up. I was under pressure. Whitney's dad was making me feel like garbage. And Dad was on me, and I just needed time. You know I'd never really hurt you. Please, you're my sister. That pivot was almost impressive. Cruelty first, then family. As if they were 2 settings on the same machine. I saved both voicemails and did not respond. At 10 that morning, I walked downstairs to Tessa's shop. She was trimming a stack of flyers with a blade and ruler. There was a paper bag on the counter. Dumplings, she said. I saw. You ate. 2 lire, half of 1. She pushed the bag toward me. Progress. I sat on the stool by the copy machine, and for the first time since the notice arrived, I cried where someone could see me. Tessa did not hug me right away. She turned the sign on the door to closed, came around the counter, and stood beside me with one hand resting lightly between my shoulder blades. No questions, no lesson, no demand. After a while, she said, Your 10 o'clock client called. I told him you had a family emergency, and he said, It's tax season, aren't they all? Then he rescheduled. I laughed through my nose. It hurt. It helped. My client stayed. Not all of them knew details, and I did not offer them. But small business communities are strange ecosystems. News travels through people who know someone who catered, someone who valeted, someone whose cousin filmed the toast. By Monday, 3 clients had sent emails saying they trusted me. 1 dropped off muffins. The dog collar woman left a card that said, You saved me from myself in 2021. Please let people save you back. I kept that card in my desk. Whitney filed for an annulment faster than my mother could understand. Her family's attorney contacted mine, not to threaten me, but to request copies of the documents related to venue payments. Graham Sorrell sent a formal statement confirming that neither he nor his wife had known about any financing in my name. He did not try to make himself a hero. I respected that. Aunt Lila gave a statement about my father's voicemail and my mother's comments. She mailed me the original audio file on a thumb drive tucked inside a sympathy card, because she said the stationery store did not make cards for Your brother committed financial fraud, and everyone acted surprised. That was Aunt Lila's version of tenderness. My parents tried once to come to my apartment. I saw them through the peephole on a Thursday evening, standing side by side in the hallway like disappointed church elders. My mother held a casserole dish covered in foil. I do not know what was in it. I never opened the door. My father knocked 3 times. Nora, he said, enough. That word almost did it. Enough. The word they used when my pain had become inconvenient. I stood barefoot on the other side of the door and said, All communication in writing. My mother began crying. Nora, please don't do this. All communication in writing. We are your parents, my father snapped. All communication in writing. He muttered something I could not hear clearly. Then they left. The casserole dish remained in the hallway for 20 minutes until my neighbor from 3B moved it onto the windowsill by the elevator. By morning, it was gone. That was the last time my parents came to my door. There were consequences. I will not dress up as clean. My credit took time to repair. My sleep was bad for months. I flinched every time certified mail arrived. I had to explain the identity theft to professional boards, lenders, insurers, and people whose job was to question everything twice. Even when you are innocent, clearing your name feels like dragging furniture through a narrow hallway. It fits eventually, but not without bruises. Caleb's case moved slowly. There were charges later, and negotiations, and more legal language than I want to put in this story. What mattered to me was simpler. The fraudulent debt was formally disputed. My name was removed from accounts I had not opened. My preparer credentials were protected. My clients stayed, and my family stopped being able to spend my silence. 3 months after the wedding, I moved my office, not far, just downstairs and over. Tessa expanded her print shop into the empty storefront next door and insisted the upstairs space was bad for my knees, even though my knees were fine. A smaller office opened behind her shop, with a street-facing window and afternoon light that came in warm across the floor. "You need a place where people can see you before they need you," she said. I told her that sounded like something from a mug. She told me to shut up and choose paint. On moving day, Aunt Lila arrived with peppermints and a label maker. My neighbor brought coffee. The dog collar client brought her teenage son to carry boxes. Tessa supervised everyone with the authority of a general and the stamina of someone fueled entirely by spite and jasmine tea. When we unpacked my desk, I found the folded strip of adding machine tape from my clutch. I had forgotten about it. It was creased from the wedding, the ink slightly smudged where my thumb must have pressed too hard. The numbers on it had nothing to do with Caleb. Just an old client total, some sales tax calculation, ordinary work from an ordinary day before the notice arrived. I almost threw it away. Instead, I fed a new strip through the calculator. Click, click, click. I typed 0, then decimal, then 00. The machine printed 0, 00. I tore off the tape and sat with it in my hand. Tessa looked over from a box of envelopes. "You okay?" "Yes," I said. And I meant it in the way you mean it, after a storm when there are branches everywhere and the power is still out. But the roof held. I taped the strip inside the top drawer of my new desk, not where clients could see it, not where my family could argue with it, just where my hand would find it when I reached for stamps or paper clips. My mother wrote letters after that. Actual letters, because I had blocked her number except for emergency emails. The first letter was 6 pages, and mostly about how painful the wedding had been for her. The second included the phrase, "Your brother's mistake," 7 times. The third said she missed my laugh, which made me angry because I could not remember the last time she had earned it. I answered once, "Mom, I will not discuss Caleb's case. I will not pay any debt created without my consent. I will not attend family meetings about forgiveness. If you want a relationship with me, you can begin by acknowledging in writing that Caleb used my identity and that you pressured me to accept responsibility after you suspected it." Nora, she did not reply for 6 weeks. Then she sent a card with a watercolor bird on the front. Inside, she had written, "I am sorry this has been so hard for everyone." I put it back in the envelope. No response. My father never apologized. That almost made things easier. He sent one email saying he hoped I was proud of myself. I printed it, placed it in the blue folder, and went back to work. Caleb wrote from his attorney's office once, asking if I would consider a statement about his character outside this incident. I declined. Later, he sent a message through Aunt Lila. "Tell Nora I'm still her brother." Aunt Lila called to ask if I wanted to hear it. "No," I said. "Good," she replied. I didn't want to repeat it, but I did see Caleb once. It was almost a year after the wedding, outside the courthouse after a procedural hearing. I had been there with my attorney to confirm records related to the identity theft. Caleb stood near the steps in a navy suit that did not fit as well as his wedding tuxedo. He looked thinner, older, angry in a quieter way. My parents were not with him. For the first time in my life, Caleb looked like a man standing inside something he could not hand to me. He saw me and crossed the sidewalk. My attorney shifted slightly, but I shook my head. Caleb stopped a few feet away. "Nora, Caleb." He looked at my attorney, then back at me. "I just want to know if you're happy." I studied him. It was such a Caleb question. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "What did I cost you?" Not, "Can I say I'm sorry?" He wanted my emotional state to be the crime scene. "No," I said. "I'm not happy about any of this." His face twitched, like he had expected something colder and had prepared for it. "Then why keep going?" "Because you kept my name." He looked down. For a second, I saw the outline of the brother I used to pack lunches for when our mother overslept. The little boy who could not tie his shoes without crying. The teenager who once waited in the rain with me when my car battery died because our Father was too mad to come get us. Memory is inconvenient that way. It does not disappear just because someone becomes dangerous. I was desperate, he said. I know, you could have helped me. I did. His eyes lifted. I said the line I had not said at the wedding, the one that had waded through every letter, every voicemail, every accusation that I had ruined him. I was useful, Caleb. I kept the numbers. He stared at me, then his face changed, not into remorse, I will not give him that, but into understanding. For the first time, maybe, he understood that the same sister he had mocked for tracking details had tracked him all the way to the truth. I walked away before he could turn that understanding into another request. That afternoon, I went back to the office and prepared 3 quarterly filings, 2 payroll corrections, and 1 extension for a bakery that had lost its bookkeeper. At 5:30, Tessa came in without knocking. "Dinner," she said. "I have work. You have always had work." She put 2 takeout containers on my desk and glanced at the strip of tape inside my open drawer. Zero, she did not comment on it. She just set down chopsticks, turned the little lamp on, and took the chair across from me. We ate noodles while traffic moved past the window and the print shop machines cooled for the night. No one asked me to carry a secret. No one handed me a bill. No one called peace the act of protecting someone who hurt me. There are still days when I miss the idea of my family. Not the real one. Not the people who waived debt at my brother's wedding and told me to pay quietly. I miss the family I kept trying to earn by being smaller, steadier, easier to use. I miss the mother who almost answered me honestly on the phone. I miss the father I used to imagine would one day notice how much I had done. I miss the brother Caleb might have been if anyone had loved him enough to let consequences reach him early. Missing them does not change the records. That is one of the few things I trust. My life now is quieter. My office has better light. My clients still bring me receipts in grocery bags, and Tessa still insults me into eating lunch. Aunt Lila comes by once a month with peppermints and gossip she pretends not to enjoy. Whitney remarried, I heard, to someone with a boring job and kind eyes. Good for her. My mother sends a card every Christmas. I do not always open it. When I do, I read it once and decide whether it belongs in the folder or the trash. That choice belongs to me now. On the first anniversary of the wedding, I stayed late at the office. Not because I was sad exactly. Because dates have weight, and I wanted to be somewhere that was mine. I opened the top drawer and touched the strip of adding machine tape. 0. Then I locked the office and went downstairs. Tessa had left the shop lights on and taped a note to the door. Soup in fridge. Don't be weird. I laughed out loud in the hallway. A real laugh. Mine. That's my story. A strip of adding machine tape, $410,000 with my name forced onto it, and a lit window over a print shop where nobody asks me to earn my place. If someone in your life only values you when you are useful, take this as your sign to look closely at what they call love. Keep the record. Trust the pattern. And when the bill was never yours, you are allowed to put it down. If this story stayed with you, tell me where you're listening from, and share it with someone who needs to remember that being calm does not mean being available to be used.